So, in a world where every click, every login, every connection carries risk, staying safe online has never mattered more. Welcome to the Scam Ranger podcast, the show where we cut through the noise and make cybersecurity simple, accessible, and relevant for everyone. For you, for your family, for everyone. Scam Ranger is a concept supported by Scamarillo.org, which you'll hear about later, and which is provided by Cyber Guardian and Reedy's Web's Designs. Cyber Guardian, it was built on one core belief, that powerful digital protection should not be reserved for big corporations or people with deep pockets. From the tools that shield your devices to the software that guards your data, Cyber Guardian puts online safety and security in the hands of everyday people. On this podcast, we're pulling back the curtain, exploring the threats that are out there, the technology built to stop them, available to you, and the real stories of people navigating the digital world safely through awareness and safer security habits. Whether you're a first-time smartphone user or someone who just wants to better understand the digital world around you, no matter your age, your background, or your technical understanding, this show is for you. So sit back, tune in, and let's build a safer digital world together. This is the Scam Ranger podcast. I'm Graham Day, the founder of Cyber Guardian, and on this initial podcast, I'm joined by the technical expert behind Scamarillo and Surf Safer Online, Mr. Wayne Reed of Reedy's Web Designs.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me today. Hopefully we can get something good going and
Absolutely,
teach some people
Wayne.
about
Always
some
a pleasure.
cyber stuff.
Well, let's not even put it as scary as that. It's not even cyber. It's just being safer online, as you
Absolutely,
say.
yeah.
People think it's cyber. Yeah. I mean, that leads nicely into the first question, really. How technical do people need to be safer online?
Do you know what? There's different scales, isn't there? But I think for the everyday user, you don't need any sort of technical knowledge whatsoever. Just maybe a bit of awareness. You don't need to have fancy tools and like online expertise or degrees in cybersecurity or anything like that. Even like the kids now can have an awareness, and that's what we should be driving for. Especially the younger generations now, because they're constantly on devices. There's issues with cyberbullying and there's hacking and all that sort of stuff, which is so prevalent right now. You don't need to be a technical whiz to keep yourself safe.
I absolutely agree and support that sentiment. I mean, you mentioned about young generation. I mean, what we've got to remember as well is, from my perspective, society, especially after COVID, a lot of society was forced onto the digital world. Obviously, there were people, maybe from our respected elder population, from those previous generations who maybe had a bit of technophobia, but they were forced online. You needed to go online to survive. So we're not just talking about current generations, we're talking about the whole range of society from my perspective. I mean, one of the common questions I get asked is, why do people get scammed? And fundamentally, what is it? It's about people being exploited. Human nature. We all have human nature, and attackers, scammers, they look to exploit that. I mean, Wayne, we've spoken about the technical aspects. You don't need to be technical. How do you, in your opinion, or knowing the resources available, how can we be safer online?
Yeah, understanding, I would say. Know the different risks pertinent to yourself. So like there's different ones for families, for individuals, businesses are open to certain risks. You know, I got scammed myself within week one of starting Reedy's web designs. You know, conned out at several £100. But you live and learn, you know. And I was lucky that it was only several £100, you know, and I'm, you know, quite long in the tooth. You know, 25 years in the Navy, definitely made me build up a good resilience. But the scam itself, whilst it didn't affect me too much, there were articles that I read about exactly that thing where small business owners, possibly elderly, you know, they're unsure and they were being threatened with court cases and thugs turning up, you know, threatening to smash up the properties and things like that. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to jump in with yourself for the Cyber Guardian thing to help promote awareness to people like me, people like my kids, other small businesses, you know, all of that sort of spectrum. And this is why we created Scamarillo.
Absolutely. I mean, you touched on so many pertinent aspects now, and I think one that's underappreciated is the whole impact. When we talk about scams, it's not just talking about financial loss. If someone suffers a scam, if they're, and there is no right term for it, you're not a victim. You suffer a scam, you know, you're being attacked. If someone attacks you in the street, holds a hammer to your head, they'll turn around to you and say, you were attacked, and you're a victim of an attack. There's no stigma with being scammed. And I mean, that's probably the biggest issue from my perspective that we need to get people to understand. You know, if you're, the scams are getting so good. They really are. I mean, everyone talks about AI, Wayne. Have you seen much emergence of AI in scams? And are they making it more difficult?
Oh, ridiculous, mate. Yeah, that you hear about them quite often with deepfake audio and video calls. You know, I had one of my friends, they ended up having their Facebook shut down because somebody he'd basically answered a Facebook Messenger video call for 30 seconds or something like that. And then from that, whoever it was that was after them had recorded it, then created an AI video to look like him and sound like him. So then they started calling all of his Messenger contacts, basically saying that they were, you know, I mean, they needed money.
It's absolutely unfathomable. I mean, the complexity of attacks is it it's totally difficult to appreciate the complexity and scale of attacks, and it's unfathomable for most people. And I really comprehend that challenge. So, from that perspective, that you shouldn't be ashamed of being scammed. I've fallen victim to it. You know, there's no shame in being scammed, in my opinion.
No, absolutely not. You know,
So
I mean, when it
we
first
talk
happened
about
to
the
me,
impact.
sorry, mate. When it first
Go
happened
on.
to me, I was like quite embarrassed to, you know, tell my partner that, you know, I'd lost £400 because over a scam. You know, I thought that, you know, I was quite intelligent, I was quite resilient. You know, a lot of time in the military taught me a lot of skills and tricks. And because this scam basically was under the banner of a NHS booklet magazine brochure, you know, have Reedy's web designs advertising here for a year, it's going to reach X amount, you know. And I was like, week one of the business, I was like, yeah, sign me up. you know, and then eventually
And straight
after
away, that's what
yeah.
scams are all about.
But I was embarrassed by
They
that.
look at opportunities and they exploit you.
Yeah. I was like, I can't,
I
you know what I
mean,
mean? For the
impact
first
wise.
couple of months, I was so devastated that I didn't want to say anything to anybody because I felt stupid.
And that's the other impact. Because it took months for you to recover.
Mm.
And unfortunately, the impact is even going further than that. You know, people are taking their lives.
Yeah.
This is a life-threatening issue.
Yeah, can be, yeah.
But, you know, and we don't talk about that with any lightheartedness. You know, I mean, and we talk about the other aspects that you mentioned initially. Yourself, understanding the threats to yourself. And really that goes on to the other point I really wanted to drive. You know, who is responsible for your online security?
Me.
It's you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not me. I can't do anything about your security.
No, the only thing that you know,
The
I mean, you can
online,
do,
gone.
the only thing that you can do is, you know, be a source of info. You know, there's things coming
But I
in, you know,
can't make
government
you adopt
guidance.
what I'm
No,
trying
you
to
can't. No, absolutely
raise
not.
your awareness of.
Yeah, yeah. I have to go find it or self promotion and things like that. My partner's mother, she got scammed, but I think by like her card got cloned or something like that 10 years ago, and now she refuses to buy anything online. She's just even now she's petrified of buying anything online. She will literally message my partner and say, "Order me this."
Yeah, lesson learned. I mean, my mother-in-law does exactly the same
Yeah.
with my wife.
Sometimes you just
I
got to
mean,
protect yourself, haven't
but
you?
it's a challenge. You know, if you're responsible for your own security, does that mean it's your fault if you get scammed? I would argue not.
I don't think so, you know, because they're so, like you said, with especially with AI now, it's super clever. You know, you hear about it quite often where they've used a deep fake voice of somebody, like a close family member or friend, and basically said, "Send me 50 quid into this account, please. I'm stuck." You know, and you would absolutely do that if you know the person. Like if one of my kids, we got 5 kids. If one of my kids was stuck, you know, one of them's up in London and she was hard up, and I got a voice note message saying, "Can you please send me 50 quid? I need to go shopping. You know, I've got no money. Blah 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 blah." I'd be like, "Yeah,
Straight away. And there's the challenge. If you know the person, or if you think you know the person, and that's where the AI manipulation comes in. It tricks you.
yeah,
I mean, the whole issue is we could point fingers until the astronauts land on the moon. Absolutely. I mean, we as a society, we are continuously evolving, and that's what happened with the internet. It happened one day, and all of a sudden, it is a part of our life, and we've just we the internet's developed so much quicker than our awareness, and I think that's the whole lesson from my perspective. You know, you got scammed, you learned from it. I've got scammed, I learned from it. My wife's got scammed, she's learned from it, and that has developed that awareness and those security habits. My mother-in-law doesn't buy anything online. She'll reach out to my wife. If my wife isn't sure, she'll reach out to me.
yeah,
I don't profess to be an expert, but I've got a bit more awareness.
yeah, absolutely."
I mean, what can we do about it?
What can we do other than promote awareness? You know, there's possibilities of, you know, I mean, there's certain plugins or browsers. So plugins are good on websites, especially e-commerce. You know, they make you pick all the traffic lights. You know, things like that from Google's reCAPTCHA. They make you find all the buses in a grid. You know, those are good.
And what is that actually doing?
They are preventing preventing.
As I understand
payment
it, they're,
fraud,
they're
essentially.
verifying you're a human, aren't they?
Yeah, and there's a couple of versions. So that version 2 where you pick up a number, and then there's version 3 where, based on how you have moved around the website, it will determine how much of a percent of a human you might be. You know, and the higher the score,
So those
the more
are,
chance of
as
it
you say,
letting you do
technical
stuff.
resources.
Yep.
What about, and I mean, obviously from our perspective, we can promote awareness.
Yeah.
But from everyday person perspective, I mean, obviously they've got to raise awareness. How can people raise their awareness? Apart from discussions like this.
Yeah, discussions like this, really promoting things on social media. You know, everybody's on their mobiles constantly, scrolling through social media content, and if you know every 10th reel was something promoting some sort of cyber awareness, it would highlight that and make sure to trigger things. You know, and they're capable of doing it because when my missus mentions that she wants to go on holiday in Zanzibar, all she's done is mentioned it. Next time that evening, I'm like doom scrolling in bed. Every third reel is Zanzibar.
The technology behind it all is absolutely phenomenal. I'm more than happy in future discussions we can absolutely explore that. And that's the intent, that's the plan of Scam Ranger,
Yeah.
is to look at the different threats, to explore how it might be applicable to you, to explore how you can better develop your awareness. And I mean, we've also got a few free resources out there that we've made available that people can visit to raise their awareness. You know, as Wayne mentioned, social media, we've absolutely pushed out all those wanted posters on social media.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the big information piece on an informal stand is Scamarillo. Let's flick over to Scamarillo now. Transition. We got Scamarillo. This will, for ideally, kids up. Everybody can come on here, have a look at different risks associated with them, even if they've been through something, and they're not sure whether they've been clickjacked or they've had some sort of credit card fraud or anything like that. They can come on here, filter down, look at the wanted posters. It's like an attractive Wild West style, really promoting how the internet and any kind of online activity is so, Wild West, uncontrolled or limited control, limited governance and things like that.
That's an absolute perfect analogy.
Yeah, and we
The
just
Wild
need
West
to
was
raise that
considered
awareness,
lawless.
I think. And I think with the social medias, these get posted out, a couple of times a week with new ones that are coming in. So if you've experienced, like, a partner's mum, she's had online shopping fraud, so she can literally go onto Scamarillo, onto the online, click on online shopping fraud, and it will filter down to one or several more wanted scammers, essentially, and find out how they can protect themselves from it. What's the risks associated with them? What is the actual fraud or scam? It's all it's like not so much tongue in cheek, but it's aimed at everybody, not
Yeah, I think
corporations.
saying it's that light-hearted
Yeah,
approach, and again with no technical, no deep technical understanding needed.
no,
It puts the very basic concept there, and it's really good, as you say. I mean, being able to filter. I mean, absolutely, we can explore Scamarillo, how it evolved and the intention, absolutely we can do that further.
Yeah,
I mean, from my perspective, we're raising awareness, but the first mission, the first task in any situation is getting responsibility. From my perspective, where it lays, it's nobody's fault that anybody gets scammed, but it's everybody's responsibility to be aware of being safer online. What do you think?
yeah, absolutely. It's everybody's responsibility who are capable of being responsible for themselves. You know, kids, it shouldn't sit with them. They should be aware that if something doesn't feel right, go to a parent. You know, if somebody's talking to them that they don't know, go to the parent. You know, but the parents should have that awareness, I think. You know, we had issues with cyberbullying with one of my stepkids, and it was horrendous. And had she not been so proud, had she not been through, it took her a long time, a lot of mental health issues before she eventually came round and told us about it.
Absolutely. But the challenge for society is, you know, children have so much more access now,
Yeah,
earlier in their life. There's no switch. You can't turn around to a child and say, "You're 16 now. It's your responsibility. You're 18 now. You're an adult. It's your responsibility." This is a journey. We are all on this journey together. I absolutely agree. Parents have a significant responsibility. You know, we try and teach children. Children have their own priorities. It's got to be, yeah, it's all about that communication. It's all about that trust. It's all about that relationship, in my opinion, from a parent's perspective, protecting children. But as well as that, parents need to know in their own right. And what they know in their own right will support that conversation as well.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, but there's also, you need to educate the kids from an early age. I mean, I'm mixed feelings with, you know, some governments are saying no social media under the age of 16. Yeah, no social media under the age of 14, 13, things like that. I think because there's no point, like you said, there's no point in getting to 16, 18 and saying go, go, go. You know, because you're still a kid at 18, regardless of being a legal adult. You know, I could just be talking about my kids who are adults, but if they went through their lives with zero interactions with any kind of social media or any kind of online life, then they hit 16, 18, and then they're fully free to go and do whatever they want. You know, they are going to be in some deep guano very quickly.
Absolutely.
I think it needs
I mean,
to
if
be
you keep a child in the
taught
house,
and monitored.
yeah, if you keep a child in the house until they're 16, never let them outside, they'll open the door at the 16th birthday and say, "Go out there." First thing they're going to do is go out and get knocked over.
Yep, absolutely. They haven't learnt the Green Cross Code. They haven't had that life awareness of anything. You know, it needs to be taught, but safely. You know, when you're teaching
Yeah.
your kids about road safety, you don't, you know, give them a brochure or a booklet. Say, read that, and then you can go. You know, the first years of that kid venturing outside, you're holding that kid's hand when you're near a road.
Well, you think about how we used to teach, you know, how the military teaches. Explain, demonstrate, imitate, practice.
Yep,
You do exactly the same
absolutely.
when you're teaching children how to cross the road. And that's what you need to do online, would be my best approach.
I think so. Yeah, my kid's mum is of a different mindset to me. she's in that bracket where, in order to protect our kids, she won't let them have social media. She won't let them do. Like my daughter, she's 14 in a couple of weeks. Her mum won't let her have online shopping apps. So, but when I'm happy for her to do online shopping, but she's 14 nearly. She's got her own money. As long as she's aware of the risks, and if she's not sure of something, she knows who to go to ask help, questions, advice, then I think that's better training than just cutting her off and then, right, you're 16 now, go shopping.
Absolutely. I mean, don't get us wrong. We're not trying to tell anyone how to parent in the digital world. And what works for you may not work for me,
Yeah.
etc., etc. Every child is unique. Every child is an individual. Every parent is an individual with their own upbringing. And those whole life lessons have been learned in different ways. I mean, I absolutely agree with what you just said. My mother-in-law, if she won't click on the link now, if she's not sure, she'll ring me up, and I don't care what time of day she rings me up.
Yep.
If it keeps her safer, I'm more than happy to answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely. I even get that with clients. People that I do their websites for, or that look after their social medias and things like that. The amount of times I get a phone call or a text message or something like that, and they're saying, I've had this come through. I've had an email saying, or I'm getting charged for such and such. Can you help? What's your advice? And it's not my expertise, but I don't mind helping them.
Absolutely agree.
One of the
I
sites
don't
that
profess
I manage,
to be a digital technical expert.
No. One of the websites I manage, the owner essentially of it. It's a Battle of Britain historical site. Essentially, it's a non-profit, charitable awareness thing. The owner phoned me up 2 weeks ago, basically saying that somebody had created a Gmail account similar to his, but it had like extra numbers and dots and things like that, and was sending emails to all of the regional managers for around the UK for the Battle of Britain Historical Society, and they were basically saying, we need to buy some gift cards, but our card's not working. Can you buy these gift cards and we'll reimburse you?
And don't forget, it has to be done urgently.
And that's exactly what it was. And I've got a sore throat, so don't call me, I can't speak. And that was exactly what happened.
Yeah, so there's so many indicators, and that is such an excellent little story. I know we're time limited today now. We've covered a lot already in this first discussion. I think we'll park that one.
Yeah, have another one.
We'll pick that one up in the next week and go through it a little bit more and look at the traits or the indicators of a scam.
Yeah, definitely.
And in your awareness, what you can develop. I mean, yeah, there's a little slogan we can develop about being safer online. Absolutely. You talk about street SaaS. You need to develop that for online safety.
Yeah, I think so.
And more to the point, the crux of today's discussion, and I think you brought it out, the impact, it's not just financial, it's life impacting impact. Who's responsible? Everybody's responsible, in my opinion, and it's nobody's fault. And as you reiterated, you don't need to be technical. It's not about technical. Those are the point. I mean, those are the pertinent points from my perspective. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely, fully agree with you. And I think anybody that's out there that's not sure, there's plenty of resources. I've already shown you the Scamarillo site and all the wanted posters. I'm just going to move over to the Cyber Guardian site again. Lots of information on there. You can go through All Surf Safer Online. If you are wanting to know how aware you are as an individual, as a business, about the cyber security that you could be facing, there's the POSSE tool, all linked in. You can link through all of the website to get hold of that, and do a self-assessment on that, basically. Figure out how good you are, and it should give you some guidelines of things that you might need to work on.
And that is all absolutely phenomenal. And the point to underline now, none of that costs any money. It'll cost you a few minutes. Hey, this podcast, it's taken us probably about half an hour, whatever, to put together. From my perspective, if one person gains awareness on the back of what we've done this morning, it's worth its weight in gold.
Winning.
If it saves someone from being scammed, one person, it's worth its weight in gold. That 10 minutes it takes you to look at any of those websites can develop one piece of knowledge that can make you safer online. And no one's saying it's the be all and end all. There's so many different resources out there. We're not saying Cyber Guardian, Scamarillo, Surf Safer Online. We're not saying that's the be all and end all. We're not saying we're the best. We're not saying we're the silver bullet. What works for one person may not work for another. But those resources you've just gone through, Wade, are absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and hopefully they will help people. Like you said, one person. If one person picks up, has a look, and it helps them, then we've done our job. Simple as.
Absolutely, and we can't force people to listen. Unfortunately, it may take someone being caught out in a scam for them to actually learn and to understand that they need to take action.
Yeah.
Obviously, our goal is to raise that awareness before that happens. Prevention is the best cure.
Yeah.
And that awareness is that prevention.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think
From my perspective, we can't do any more. We can't force people to listen.
no. But we can help. And if anybody's got any questions, if anybody is stuck or they have snags, we're trying to find any particulars that they're after, or they're victims of a scam or something like that, and they just want to get the word out so that other people don't fall for the same thing or get conned, or go through the same rubbish situation that you went through, reach out.
Absolutely. There is no shame. There's no need to be embarrassed.
No.
Scams happen to everyone, and the complexity is getting so challenging, even for professionals, business leaders, politicians. Everyone's liable to get scammed. And the problem is, for some of society, they won't admit it. But don't think, if you've fallen victim for a scam, don't think you're the only one. Believe me, for every one who admits it, there's probably 99 or 1,000 or 10,000 people who haven't. If you've got the courage to own it and develop from it, absolutely applaud it, in my opinion, and make the best use of the resources out there.
Yeah, awesome. Cheers for that, mate. Well, it's been a blast. I really enjoyed that. And
Are we done recording?
no, we're going to go to closing scene now, mate.
Okay.